I had this vision for this panel being a breakdown of the playbook that both of you guys seem to have cracked about storytelling in sports. And on our call last week, Ricky goes, our playbook is just to find amazing stories and then to tell amazing stories. I was like, oh, there you go. That's it right there. So I would love, Ricky, to start with you. If you can expound a little bit more on both the finding and the telling, but for maximum effort, what is it do you think that has made you guys so successful?
Yeah, I mean, hey everyone, great to be here today. I think for maximum effort, the goal is to find great products, services, things people care about, and tell the world about them. And tell them in interesting ways, tell them ways that make people laugh, make people care about things, and do that over and over and over. And as simple as it sounds, I think there's a reference in an earlier panel, like keep it simple. Like to some extent, like find things people love and shine a light on them in interesting ways that that respect and bring joy to the world in different interesting ways has been successful and something we hope to keep doing for a long time.
You guys do a lot more than just sports, but sports is becoming a bigger and bigger part of your portfolio. How unique, or is sports unique in terms of all of the stuff that you're doing, whether it's commercial stuff with Mint and gin and the aviation gin and Deadpool and things like that in Hollywood?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I joined up a little under a year ago and been focused on helping build out the sports portfolio. Was lucky to inherit Wrexham and the rocket ship at Wrexham has been. And I think we look at sports as a really unique opportunity to connect with communities that care greatly about things. When you think about sports, so much of it is something you grew up with. It's something that you irrationally care about. It's something that is passed generation to generation. And ultimately, there's a stakes inherent to a lot of sports that matter. And I think for us, sports is a big part of that because there's always stories to be told of sports. And I think it's something interesting when, like, we all watched the Little League World Series and have points of view and opinions on the things like the Little League World Series. And you kind of deconstruct and you're like, it's a Saturday. I'm watching ABC right now. And
14-year-olds play
like,
baseball.
Some 12-year-old throwing 75 and yeah, I'm going to watch it because the stakes are there and you understand like this is going to be one of the biggest moments in their life if it works. And I think that idea that every day there's a really massive moment happening in sports, I mean something that'll help define the joy of that community. And Wrexham is a great encapsulation of that. When you go to Wrexham, like the change that's there when the team wins, when a streak is ongoing, when promotion is on the line, the joy and excitement permeates through every aspect of the community. And I think that's something that we're just excited to be able to be part of the sports universe at this point because sports is sports.
Raj, Everton's made you feel that way occasionally in the past couple decades, yeah?
Everton football. I didn't come here to talk about human darkness. I came here to talk about human light. But that's ultimately what football allows you to experience. Soccer allows you to experience every single human emotion safely within the confines of 90 minutes. You end the game, please God, as intact with as many limbs as you began. But transformationally, in the safest possible way, sports allows you to feel that emotion, feel that sense of global connectivity. You know, when early in COVID, when football stopped, sports stopped, and then the first game Dortmund played Schalke, Erling Haaland, then who we now know as just genuinely like a Viking frozen, come back to life like Brendan Fraser in Encino Man, and just pillaging in the Premier League. He was playing for Dortmund and he scored at the first goal post-COVID, and we're all watching in a remote little bubbles, and the sense of exhilaration, the sense of connectivity, the sense of human emotion that crackled over Twitter when back then it was still in a fairly good place. You felt that sense of global connection. And in its heights, the World Cup's coming here, 2026, to the United States of America. This sport is, well, we feel at Men in Blazers Media Network, we feel like Tony Hawk, currently just going towards the biggest half pipe possible. Tony Hawk with a lot less hair. But like we are covering the men's, women's, the global, the domestic, the international game, the club game, every facet, bringing brands in touch with the biggest community of football fans in America. And it is about storytelling. It's about feeling things. It's about feeling alive. That's ultimately what sports allows you to feel. Cross-generational memory making, self-awareness, emotional connection, and a sense of joy fleeting joy, but joy all the same.
So some of that is timeless. People loved Everton 100 years ago, and in 100 years they still will. But that some of it is changing, right? The way in which people love and consume these sports is different than it was 100 years ago, and I'm sure it will be different in 100 years. What do you guys think about the specific moment we are in right now, and the way in which the way people show their affection for teams, players, is changing, I think, from what's happening on the field to something that's a little bit different, community building and behind the scenes?
I'll take the first crack at it. I mean, I feel like there's more ways to consume fandom than ever before. Welcome to Wrexham is a great example of that. Season 2 just went to all episodes available on Hulu or Disney Plus if in town from Europe, and everyone knew the ending of season 2 already. I won't spoil it for those who are. It's weird if you're here and you don't know the ending of that one at this point, but the story of it, and sitting there, we were watching the last episode, and you're like, wow, I'm about to cry watching something that I already know that happened, have lived through, and now I'm watching the story of it again in a way that makes you kind of re-examine what promotion looks like. And I think that's something that, and the impact it has on that community, it's very different than 140 characters of joy or complaint or whatever the case might be for that people see, but it's all versions of fandom and different access points for people to fall in love with their team in different ways, or fall in love with a sport for the first time. And I think it's something that, when done right, all the things work incredibly well together. Why we first got to work with the amazing Men in Blazers team was like the idea of, how do you expand the story to go beyond just Welcome to Wrexham? How do we tell more of the stories of Wrexham? How do we get people more hooks into loving, or they're falling in love with Wrexham and falling in love with the sport? Let's give them more of that. And that's where I pass it to you.
Oh, God bless you, Ricardo. It was a great day when Ricardo walked into my life. He is a life-changing bloke.
I was at the Starbucks parking lot.
That's true. I was just looking for the love of my life, and there he was right in front of me. The reality is, not everybody knows how Welcome to Wrexham. This is where, the Wrexham story appeared on our in our consciousness really about a year and 3/4 ago. We're covering every aspect of world football, and whenever we started to write about this Wrexham story, and I can talk about Wrexham in great depth, but I'll spare you for 1 second. Essentially, they have jerry-rigged the changing tectonic plates of football that you're hinting at, because football is always shifting. I grew up in England, Liverpool, super American now, more American than Kenny Powers. But I grew up in Liverpool, and back then English football was like a backwater. And Italy was where the best teams were. But we've seen it shift dramatically to this moment, where the Premier League is now in this indomitable position. What Wrexham has done, and I can talk more about it if it's interesting, they've essentially jerry-rigged the different forces that make up a global megaphone, positioned it right on top of this tiny team, and made it this tiny, the biggest, smallest micro power of a football team in the world. And it's a very complicated, deeply emotional, really nuanced story. It started a register for us about a year and 3/4 ago. Whenever we'd write about Wrexham, taking it really seriously, people were like, nah, that's a fad. We're like, it's not a bloody fad. This thing is complicated, nuanced, and wonderful. We'd write about it, speak about it, and it would do what we call messy numbers. It would do huge bloody numbers. That's when we started to meet. We were like, what are you trying to achieve? Because I want to tell joyous stories. I want to tell positive stories. I want to work with footballers. I want to work with, Men in Blazers Media Network, working with Entertainment Media Network, NBA, NFL stars who love football. And then, Jurgen Klopp of Liverpool, he comes on every year. Pep Guardiola loves coming on. They want to speak to America. So we're in that nexus. And the Wrexham story, within that platform, was doing huge numbers for us. And ultimately, it's because it's about joy, a sense of meaning, optimism, all of these currencies in short supply. And so the tectonic plates are shifting. The greatest part of it for us as we sit here now, this is the greatest place to cover football from. This is the greatest place to be a football fan. This sport, which we joke on our show, soccer, America's sport of the future, as it has been since 1972. That future is now, brands are pouring in, the World Cup, the Copa, Messi's coming here for a bloody reason. So yes, it's changing. And the biggest challenge to it for everybody, for Wrexham, for Manchester United, for Messi, is the difference between the global audience and the local audience. That's the biggest. If you speak to Liverpool's CEO, he'll tell you his biggest challenge is global growth is massive, but keeping the most important audience, the multi-generational Liverpool audience, happy at the same time is the biggest dancing act every brand in football has to do.
Raj, I've heard you say that oftentimes you would talk about Wrexham on the show, on your show, about what's happening live with Wrexham. And you would get notes from people saying, don't spoil season 2 of Welcome to Wrexham for us. And that's crazy to me, right? The idea that the live sports product is the spoiler for the way some people would rather consume the Wrexham story, which is not, are they winning on Saturday? It's, can I watch the documentary months later and see it play out in that way? That seems like such an interesting media dynamic to me.
Crazy, huh?
Would never have made sense even.
Yeah, we talk about Wrexham on our podcast week to week. Paul Mullin scored another hat trick. They beat the Shrimpers. And we've been like marveling at it. And we've got a very, very active audience, a very, very active mailbag. And, you know, they're following the bloody Premier League. They're following women's football for the US women's national team. They know what Barcelona are doing. They know what Bayern Munich are doing in Germany. They kind of know what AC Milan are doing because a lot of Americans play. They've got a full lot of bandwidth. So they are not following Nations League football week to week. They are not following National League football. They're not following. And so when we started talking about Wrexham originally, it's mind-blowing. It's beautiful. But people would write in and be like, we love you. We love listening to your show. Please stop talking about Wrexham because you are going to ruin season 2 of Welcome to Wrexham, which is coming out in 6 months' time for us. And we had a meeting where we're like, shit, what do we do? Like, are we being bastards? Is it like talking about Game of Thrones season 5 just when it's ended? Like, are we violating the audience expectation? But it is hilarious. You are creating something deeply powerful that many Americans love to consume without ever thinking about a second of live football.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this past summer we had Wrexham came over on a summer tour, and Chapel Hill against Chelsea, 55,000 fans. Easily 20,000 of them were Wrexham fans. And same thing in LA, San Diego, Philadelphia, and watching the kind of the multi-generational family. So our match against San Diego against Manchester United, you had parents there in Man U jerseys and their kids buying Wrexham jerseys. And so this idea that on this 20-year trajectory, you'll have people who have never been to Wrexham that have Wrexham as the team that made them fall in love with the sports, and their most passionate fandom is there. And I think there'll be so many of those interesting things, and we see it in a town. I mean, so much of what we try to do is make sure that anything we do is going to be a net positive for the club, for the players, for the fans, and for the community. And so when you talk to the mayor of Wrexham, one of his biggest hopes is to get people to spend the night, because you have so many people that now come over from a football tourism standpoint, and there's like 100 hotel rooms in Wrexham at this point. There's lovely places to stay in the area, don't get me wrong, but in Wrexham, there's not too many hotels at this point. But now you have an influx of football tourists where if you come over to the UK for a week, Wrexham's a must-do stop on that. Stadium holds 10,000 people. You're lucky if you get a ticket, so you go hang out at the turf and watch the match. It's up to us on this multi-year journey to figure out how do you have the community benefit the most from that, and make sure that the fans at the local level and to the point the global fans all understand how it all coexists and are able to be part of this in a meaningful way.
It is an incredible tension, and you guys, watching you guys try and harness it, handle it, understand it. I mean, there is something about what you guys have done which also drew me to the story, is that a lot of American sports owners do charge in, I'm not going to name any names, to their Premier League teams. Are like, we got this, we own this team in America. And they're like, you know, and genuinely, it's like, and I speak to a lot of them very quickly. They'll come and seek us out, because it is like watching a donor organ be rejected by the host body so unbelievably bloody quickly. And I think you guys did approach it with an intelligence, I think a humility, and a sense of genuine wonder. The tour was amazing. It was fascinating for many bloody reasons. We went and worked with Chelsea Football Club right afterwards. So I went to the Philadelphia game, sold out in Philadelphia, all Wrexham jerseys, all American Wrexham fans watching a football game. To be completely candid, none of them knowing the songs yet. None of them knowing when to, there was like a weird, speak to the players. I'm like, it looked amazing. It felt different. But the Chelsea, I went to film with them right afterwards. We filmed with the manager, Mauricio Pochettino, and speaking to the Chelsea staff people, they were like, fucking Wrexham. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, we won the Champions League. 2 seasons ago, we're bloody playing in North Carolina, and 40% of the fans in that sold-out stadium were wearing Wrexham shirts. And I laughed, to your point about changing plate tectonics, and I said, they've only been doing this for 2 years. Project it forward 10 years, and think about what the percentages will be then. And there's a joy and a wonder. And one of the things I feel most blessed about covering this sport in all of its manifestations, men's, women's, global, World Cups, Premier League, Champions League, Women's Super League, we cover every single aspect of it, is that the American fan is not wedded by locale or geography. Where I grew up, you supported Everton or Liverpool. That's it. Genuinely it. If you grew up in Leeds, you are Leeds. And you multi-generationally inherit your team, unless you're an arsehole like my brother who was just supported Liverpool because they won things. Every family has a black sheep. But the American fan has a hybrid identity. And this is the wonder of Wrexham, is that you can support Chelsea. I ask our fans, who do you support? And they'll say, I support Chelsea. Bayern are my German team. I support PSV in the Netherlands because they've got the 3 Americans. AC Milan have become my Italian team, and Wrexham. They'll say North Carolina Courage, US women's national team for sure. And the Wrexham thing is the part of the power of what you are creating, a story that everybody, it's not, if you guys had decided, we're going to buy Manchester United, the Glazers, looks a bit dodgy for them. We're going in. You would have been able to take a section of the American fan base. But what you've done with Wrexham is it's just a joy. It's not menacing. Everybody can opt in. Add it to that incredibly vivacious Star Wars cantina hybrid footballing identity. And it's been amazing to witness.
I was going to ask, how much does the Wrexham story change if and when, knock on wood, the team is really good, right? If in 4 or 5 years this team is playing in the championship or somewhere else, do you lose the kind of lovable, harmless second team kind of aspect of it at some point?
I think it's a journey. I think Ryan and Rob care so much about the long-term journey of this. And it's something that, again, back to for the players, the fans, the community, all those things have to be right. And I think it's clear that at every step, if you're playing against Wrexham, there's going to be some potential. They have everything. They have the show. But no matter what, on our journey to Premier League, we're an underdog on this journey for a very long time. And so hopefully we get lucky and we're in the promotion zone this year. Knock on wood, a long season left. But at some point in time, it'd be great to get promoted again. At some point in time, it'd be great to get promoted again. If we're that lucky, we're in the championship. Where those teams are things like Leicester City, which have won, we're in Champions League multiple years ago, just a few years ago. And then at that point, you hope to get to the Premier League. And then I think it's how do you get there in a way that maintains the integrity of the journey, that has impacted a town in an everlasting way, and allows for us to get there in a sustainable way. Again, that journey is not going to happen overnight. And I think so much of it is doing it in a way that makes sure that the entire community benefits on that journey. And then hopefully people have come along at it from a fandom standpoint around the world. But there are no shortcuts to it. And so much of it is trying to make the right choice over and over and over and over. And I think that's something we spend a tremendous amount of time on. And it's difficult to know what the reaction will be over the decades ahead. But all we can do is try to do the right thing every single day and have it compound over time.
Raj, you mentioned the World Cup coming up here. We're entering, as you said, the Tony Hawk going up on this huge ramp of commercialized soccer here in the U.S. And I wonder for you and Men in Blazers, how much of the magic sauce that you guys have found do you think is soccer specific, coming and talking and explaining this somewhat foreign sport in a U.S. audience, and how much do you think the things that you guys do so well could work in the NFL or among baseball fans or hockey fans and things like that?
But I mean, we've done NFL stuff. You know, we work with the NHL. I love American sports. I adore every single athletic pursuit, and it's been a joy to work with all of those leagues. As we've gotten bigger, you know, I've realized our unique focus is about this audience and being able to, for the first time in America, wire up the audience, which is diverse and complex. You know, the men's audience, the English-focused audience, the Hispanic audience. We've got Hispanic talent coming on, speaking to just this vivacious, kinetic, enormous audience of wonder. And so I realized that was the task at hand for us. Look, football has many advantages, global football. You know, there's two things. Albert Camus, before he became quite a good writer, was apparently an excellent goalkeeper. And he's alleged to have said, and I like to believe it's true, he said, everything I know about human beings, humanity, he learned from watching football. And what he means is, ultimately, football is about decision-making in the crucible of pressure. We're watching men and women, you know, they can either pass, kick, or shoot the ball. And the greatest players just make better decisions more of the time than the merely good ones. So you think humanity at the greatest telenovela acted out live with the world watching. But all sports have that. But the thing that global football has that I think American sport doesn't, and I adore American sport, you know, going to interview like Austin Matthews is just wonderful. It's like, let's talk to you, Austin Matthews, about how you see the world. That's amazing. The thing football has that I don't think American sports can compete with is something that Simon Kuiper once wrote in the Financial Times. He wrote that when the best teams take the field, their nation's histories, culture, and politics take the field alongside them. So when the LA Rams play like the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's a bloody good game. Like, we're watching. Okay, America's watching. But it's not like you've got echoes of geopolitics. It's like when Spain play, you've got like the
Jaguars are London's team.
Yeah, God bless. Yes, for centuries, English people have been going around being like, don't you blaspheme against my Jaguars. Yeah, we've fought wars for our love of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you have, like, when Germany take the field, there's a lot of history. Let's just say when Spain take the field, there's always a lot of history, culture, politics. And so that's ultimately it. To me, sports is at its best when it transcends sports, when you're talking about something greater, when ultimately, and that's what we try and do in everything. I want, right in this moment, with the Men in Blazers Media Network, whoever is the talent, and we're lucky. We've got Becky Sauerbrunn, the women's captain. We've got Tyler Adams, he's the men's captain. We've got Hercules Gomez, who played in Liga MX, played for the US men's national team, engaging the Hispanic audience. We've got a Wrexham correspondent, Tommy Kaus, an incredibly talented gentleman who's been cheering for Wrexham in terrible times and now in moments of glory, bringing the American fan base closer to town, culture, team. I want you to click off my crap, whatever it is, and just feel better fleetingly about life than you were before. And I think that's ultimately something all sports can give. I want you to feel wiser. I want you to feel more informed. I want you to feel joy. I want you to feel that everything is possible. And I think that's ultimately the thing that football can provide, not just the connectivity, the generational sense of memory making, which are both. We had Mark Cuban on the show, and I was talking to him about sports. For me, it is my granddad was an Everton fan, my dad's an Everton fan, my kids, poor bastards, are Everton fans. And I said it's about generational memory making, and Mark Cuban stopped the show to write that down. He goes, that's going in the Mavericks season ticket renewal next week. Lots of sports can do it, but it's the depth of the storytelling that I think football. I mean, you're involved in so many sports. You can probably answer that from a different perspective. Yeah,
I mean, I think every sport has its own unique moment and its unique stakes and unique fandom. I mean, I think we're obviously... we're the second investors on the stage today, in Alpine, from a Formula One standpoint. And it's something where, being at Formula One Vegas, like, it's different. It's clearly there's the big established, the big four teams, if you will, and there's everyone else is an underdog, and finishing in fourth place felt like an amazing moment in time there. But what's so interesting to me about Formula One is something where it's this global footprint where it's the most global sport, and the differences of what's it like in Sao Paulo versus Tokyo versus the Vegas Grand Prix, it's so incredibly interesting to see. And so I think for sports, again, it's can be very local, it can be very global, it can be weekly, it can be seasons, it can be all these different aspects, and I think that's what has helped sports just continue to grow so much in a incredibly polarizing world right now. Sports is one of the most safest conversation points for so many people. And I think it's something that, it's something where that escapism and joy and meaning that it brings to it continues to only grow in its importance around the world.
Just to add one quick thing. By the way, when you were saying that, I just imagined the beautiful convergence of Paul Mullin driving your lead car to victory in the Vegas Grand Prix next season. That will be...
In the Celebrity Grand Prix.
That's the Pro-Am Grand Prix. That's amazing.
It seems dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Todd Burley would probably like... we need a Pro-Am Grand Prix. God bless. So the one thing I'd add is... we're just with a brand, a sports drink. A lot of brands are coming into football right now, and Men in Blazers Media Network is like one of the first stops. You know, our numbers are quite massive, and the diversity of audience is like the first point of differentiation. And I asked, there was a sports drink that came in last week to meet with us, and I asked them, why are you getting into football? And the World Cup is an obvious answer, the Copa America. In 2025, there's the Club World Cup coming, which no one knows what the hell that is, not even FIFA who are organising it, but it's going to be big. And the head of the brand said, ultimately, our data shows us, and this is the answer from an American perspective, that the football fan by 2030 will be the perfect refraction of America demographically. Please God, there still will be a united America in 2030. But that was an amazing moment, just to think about our fan base, this diverse, eclectic fan base. The US men's national team, when they run out, they feel that, the players. They look at each other and they're like, we are the America that we want to believe in. And that data point, 2030, the football fan base, the soccer fan base in the United States is the perfect refraction of America, is genuinely a thrilling thing, I think, for everybody that's involved in the sport.
Another reason I'm sure they wanted to meet with you is the way that you weave your partners into what you're doing. We had a conference called The Three of Us last week. Raj brought the stock coffee, Stoke cold brew coffee. There you go, right? Correct me. I'd never seen that before. The private Zoom, but making sure that the sponsor was right there in front.
73% made up of Stoke products at this time of day. It is, and by the way, we're an authentic brand. That brand was in my refrigerator for years before we ever developed a partnership with them. But God bless. Ultimately, by the way, our fan base, and any of you who are involved in brands in the audience, our fan base love any brand that is trying to grow the sport they love in America. Stoke, the Stoke Kairas, the Wrexham Racecourse Ground, Stoke Racecourse, and the love that the brands get back. When Bud sponsored the National Women's Soccer League, one of the first serious sponsors, they said, it was a small amount of money for them, but the goodwill they got from the fan base for being a first mover was just registered off the charts, and I think that you really do feel that.
Ricky, one of the greatest things I think that Ryan and Rob did when they bought Wrexham was it Williams trailers?
E4 Williams?
E4 Williams, yeah. The small Welsh trailer company that had been with Wrexham for years before they bought them, and they made a kind of a spoof ad for this trailer company. It got 500,000 views in the first 24 hours after it went out or whatever. I know that Williams was over the moon happy about that.
Well, it's been interesting finding the balance of global partners coming in and local businesses.
Exactly. Yeah.
You see some of the clashes sometimes on the signboards when watching some match where it's like, it'll go from United Airlines to like a Welsh litigation attorney. And so we always want to make sure we reserve a certain amount of inventory for local businesses to be part of it. And a lot of our partners have really tried to figure out how to connect deep in the community. We just hosted 45 people over in Wrexham, and a lot of it is just understanding where partnerships can actually have true impact in the community. So be it through Vistaprint or HP, helping small businesses, in so many different unique ways. But I think if you look at something like Stoke, so much of it for them as well as saying, all right, we're a long-term partner of Wrexham. How do we make sure that we aren't just impacting community in Wrexham, but how do any Wrexham fans in the world see, feel, hear Stoke being part of it? And I think it's this idea of like being a partner in Wrexham is truly trying to be a partner in this growth journey and trying to make sure that these are, again, people that are on this journey for a long time, and make sure that the local businesses have as much impact as possible. So things like Small Business of the Match will be rolling out, where it's done in partnership with Vistaprint, community technology impact with HP. It's all exciting for us. And it's something we try to challenge the partners on, is how do you make sure that the whole community benefits, and it's not just on the field sees the benefit, but everyone that's a supporter of Wrexham sees the benefit.
We only have a few minutes left, and I do want to open to questions. But one more for you, both of you. Actually, you've both mentioned women's soccer a few times. I talk a lot with women's soccer investors who feel like, from an investment financial standpoint, it is one of the more undervalued assets out there financially. I'm curious, from a storytelling standpoint, if you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, season 2 had 2 great episodes about the women's team, and we have unbelievable stories of the women's team. If anyone hasn't watched, I can't recommend watching it enough. But like the match last year at the Stoke Kairos, where we had 10,000 fans there for one of the big promotion matches for the women's team, was unbelievable. And
Spoiler alert.
yes, I said the promotion match. You'll have to tune in to see. And I think that journey, you see it with the Women's Super League and a lot of the evolution in the last couple of weeks. There's so much opportunity to have these signature clubs in the UK that will have as much impact as the men's clubs of the last 100 years have had. And I think Wrexham will be in that same place. We view the men's and women's team as being equally important on this journey. And we have a lot of exciting things in store over the next years ahead for the women's team. And again, started this season by telling their story in season 2. It's something where I think just, again, to say it's inevitable implies that it hasn't already happened. And I think when you look at the success of from to, where you had national team centric success, to now you have just dominant club teams and these massive, ridiculous audiences in San Diego or Angel City or Chelsea. And it's exciting to see just how much it's become the absolute norm, but it's also just the beginning of this explosion.
It's a joy of my lifetime as a football fan, is to see the rise of the game here, but also in England. Like, it's a longer story and we don't have time now, but it was day class A when I grew up to be a woman trying to kick a football, because we were a very misogynistic, horrible society. So to see it soar there, it's so bloody joyful. And for us, like, we've always taken the women's game as seriously as the men's game. We've always lent into the elite storytelling. You know, we had a strategic partnership with the US women's national team all the way through the World Cup. And it's, for us, 2024, we have a number of strategic priorities. We're going to start doing like college game day before the big games in the United States and Europe, bringing the American audience to feel like they're actually at the games. And just that's the top priority alongside the women's game for us. We are staffing up, we're talenting up, and by the end of 2024, we'll have, you know, as we do for the men's game, coverage of every ball that's kicked. We'll have a team that will mirror that, and it will be exactly 50% of the enterprise. It's surging, it's incredible. The NWSL is utterly magical. And that's ultimately the goal for us by the end of 2024, to have it absolutely be equal.
Let's do 1 or 2 questions if anyone has one. Oh, Scott, what a surprise! What do you know?
Hey, Ricky, we were talking in the back, and I came from it. I don't use the word lightly. I think that Rob and Ryan and the team are geniuses in their ability to turn anything into content. Everyday stuff becomes memorable content. That said, and I'm just throwing pie in the sky, let's say Travis and Taylor Swift want to buy a 4th division team. They go together. All that power of promotion, same thing. On the scale of impossible to easy, where would you place the ability to replicate what has happened in Wrexham?
I could talk about this for a very long time, so I'll try to keep the short version. I think, and it takes a lot of commitment and a longitudinal view on things to make sure to assure success. Now, flip side, if every team in League 2 was owned by various large-scale owners, someone's going to finish in first and someone's going to finish in last. And so at some point in time, there's just a certain math of like teams still have to go play the games and win. But I think when I first started, the question I was like, oh, how involved are Ryan and Rob? I'm like, Ryan and Rob are as involved as you would expect two people who've tied their name to a club in a city. They have a kid together. It's called Wrexham, and it's going to be their journey for forever. And I think that level of passion they bring to it, anyone that wants to go buy a team and bring that level of passion, commitment, and support organization they've been able to put around it. Lucky to have some Max Effort colleagues here, but we work every day, all day, thinking about how to grow these things, and people on the ground in Wrexham that have come in waves to go and be part of this and continue to grow this, and knowing that we're just in the beginning of the journey. So I'd say the power of name will get you in the door, but I think it's the passion and caring and longitudinal commitment to the community is that what makes the difference. And so you've seen examples. JJ Watt is one that keeps jumping up of like someone who seems to be so all in on what he's trying to do right now. And so I could see it easily working for other people, but it's not about just the name. It's about the deep commitment on a long-term basis.
That was the short answer, right?
I could talk for much longer on it, sure.
Is there anyone else? One more? Oh, maybe two more then. You go, and then Mandy, you'll close us out.
Roger, you spoke pretty eloquently about all the great things that Wrexham has done, building momentum for itself. My question is, what are a couple of things that it could do wrong? Like, what are things that it should avoid as it looks to harness all this momentum moving forward?
Wow. Well, I think the global local tension is just one of the most complicated for every single football team to constantly navigate. And it's not something you can ever get right, because it can always just flip in a heartbeat. And they are, united audiences, but they're very different audiences. They have a different relationship to the club, a different sense of ownership. When I was a kid, I was really into indie music. 7, 8, 9, Culture Club. I was probably the only person that brought their first single in Liverpool. Second single, I was probably one of 10 people. Their third single was Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? They went to number 1. My mum was like, oh, your Culture Club, look at them. They're number 1. It's amazing. And I started crying. And she said, why are you crying? And I said, they're not my Culture Club anymore. They're the world's Culture Club. And I never listened to them again. And that's the tension that you've got. You've got in Wrexham human beings. Tommy Kaus, Tommy Cheese, our Wrexham correspondent, he tells the story, and his travelogues on our YouTube are unbelievably beautiful, really deep, rich storytelling. And he tells the story that 10 years ago, he says, if he had a spare Wrexham ticket, he couldn't give it away. Like, none of it, all of his mates thought he was what the hell are you going to see them? And he went everywhere, went all over, England, cheering this team on. Now he says if he has a spare ticket, it's worth a fortune. And that in there is the inherent difference. Like, that's a deeply transformational moment of wonder. And it can be a deeply transformational moment of challenge. And Ricky will know those challenges, because I'm sure they bared their teeth on occasion, that you can be like, we're going to make a bigger stand so more people can come. That's a great thing from the outside. From the inside, they're like, we like being rained on. We love, we like it when it's tight, when it's us, when it's our culture club, not the world's culture club. And I think those are the tensions. And it's ultimately something you will keep navigating. And I'll say again, there's been watching Rob and Run and having spent some time with Rob, knowing that it's actually quite bloody authentic. I kept waiting for him to drop his mask and to be a bastard, to be like, hey, it's all just a real estate ploy. Hey, because you often meet with people who've taken over teams, and when they're off the record, they'll be like, yeah, actually, we just want to build a block of flats in the corner of the land. The football team, Sodom. It is deeply authentic, and that humility is. I think as long as they never lose that humility, they can navigate. But football's crazy. FSG, Boston Red Sox owners, Liverpool had not won a title in 30 years. They delivered a title and a Champions League win. And then, 2 seasons later, the fans are like, get out me club, you're ruining me club, you're destroying me club. And I was like, oh my God, I wish someone would come in and destroy my club like that. So that's it. It's tough, man. It is very, very tough.
Mandy, one quick one.
Okay, I'll try to keep it fast. Hi, I'm Mandy Gutman. I'm a communications consultant in the soccer space. And soccer is famously fragmented, right? You've got national teams, European clubs, MLS, and NWSL. So if you're a brand, right, and you want to start getting engaged in the space, where would you start besides obviously becoming a partner of Men in Blazers Media Network?
I would say, I think picking one thing and getting an A+ is better than picking 6 things and getting a C- in all 6 of them. And I think that's something in previous life did sports marketing deals with people like the Celtics who'll be up next, where it's like, we're going to go all in and get deep, great learnings and then expand from there. And I think one of the things with Wrexham that's been nice is a lot of our partners, we are their only sports marketing partnership, or we're their first sports marketing partnership, which allows you to really, truly immerse in that league, what's going to work, that team, that community. And I think versus dividing by 10 and hoping that you now have a soccer portfolio, that'd be my personal advice just for anyone starting out in a particular space that has such nuance to it.
I mean, it's a great question. And I'd say to any brand, what do you want to achieve? Know what you want to achieve before you enter the sport. Which audience do you want to speak to and how? There are many, many pathways. It's more than just the leagues. It's also the broadcast channels. It's so bloody fragmented. If the NBC is in the Premier League business, HBO is in the US soccer business, CBS is in the Champions League business and the NWSL business, Fox is out in the Alexi Lalas business, and so they've all got their own niches. I mean, it's created a massive opportunity for us. And to be candid with you, we're like a band that's gigged a lot. We have a deep emotional connection with our audience because our growth has been honest and true, and we've gigged small rooms, bigger and bigger and bigger rooms. So we have a deep connection. I didn't know how huge our numbers were until 5 years ago when we started. The number of impressions, and our numbers were enormous. And part of the joy for us is it has created that opportunity because MLS is selling MLS business, and US soccer is giving you their games, and everybody's fragmented. We are have risen because we are the one united place where brands can come and touch everything: men's, women's, your Premier League, your Champions League, your NWSL, your US soccer. So like the unifying opportunity is what has allowed us to really thrive and grow, and I feel very grateful. But we always say to any brand we're going to work with, any partner, and there are a lot coming in now, like a win for us is not a win for us unless it's a win for you. Like we want long-term bloody relationships. And so knowing as a brand what you want to achieve, what a win for you, everything's possible through football right now, but knowing what you want, what audience you want to speak to and how, those I think are the really critical questions for brands right now as they approach the football space.
Ricky, Raj, this was a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Oh, Evan, thank you. Rock on, Sportico.